everyone, and welcome to this first video in the sessions for integrated theories of sexual offending. In this series of videos, what we'll be looking at is essentially a range of different theoretical frameworks for understanding how and why people go into a trajectory that takes them into sexual offending. The content is quite sensitive, so do bear that in mind, but we'll be going through these theories in a very systematic way. What to expect in this series is essentially an overview, like I've said, of various different theoretical frameworks for understanding sexual offending. There's a lot of different theories in relation to this kind of offending behaviour. A lot of them are quite similar, so a lot of the videos, a lot of the frameworks for understanding this type of behaviour may feel a little bit repetitive, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, in that once you understand the core aspects of each of these theories, then you should be able to understand a range of different models for understanding why people commit sexual offences. So, for example, we'll be looking at Finkelhor's 4 preconditions model, a couple of different integrated theories by Marshall and Barbary and Ward and Beach. Ward and Seigert's pathways model is very influential, and then Cito's motivation facilitation model is probably the most parsimonious, the simplest of the models to understand, but it's also the most recent. So that's one that I really kind of would like you to learn and understand from a kind of theoretical, abstract perspective. We'll also look at competing accounts of rape. So we'll look at maybe the social science model versus the evolutionary model and see how these are different and how these different approaches help us to understand how and why people may commit acts of rape. And then we'll look at an emerging model of CSEM use. So CSEM stands for child sexual exploitation material. So essentially, colloquially in the media, this might be referred to as child pornography. We don't use that phrase within the literature because of the kind of connotations that the label pornography has in relation to consensual material. But CSEM offending is an emerging area in this area of research, so we'll look at one model of that as well. I think it's really important before we start to really understand why we have these integrated theories. What they do is they offer us a way of properly organising clinical observations. So each of these theories have emerged from years and years of people doing research, working with people with sexual convictions, and seeking to understand how they got to the position that they're in. So thinking about the range of different issues that come up in clinical practice and then seeing how they come together. What that means that people are doing is linking seemingly disparate constructs. So this idea of maybe a deviant sexual interest and poor relationships, or attachment issues in childhood and the onset of puberty, seemingly disparate concepts, but actually when you start to put them together and think about offence chains, things like that, they start to make sense from a theoretical perspective. Now, what these testable theories do, or what these kind of organisation theories do, is develop testable hypotheses. So what that means is that if we hypothesize that attachment issues are linked to difficulties with puberty, which then maybe lead to sexual offending in adolescence, which is part of the Hall and Hirschman model, what we would suggest potentially is that that is a testable hypothesis. We can test that by looking at people in adolescence with attachment difficulties and seeing how they deal with the onset of puberty. What we can do with those experiments, what we can do with those studies, is start to either confirm or refute some of these theoretical observations that have been made. Now, this is obviously a vital part of the scientific process. The ability to organise our thoughts, to develop testable hypotheses, and to test them to see what works and what doesn't work in understanding offences like sexual offending is a really important process for us to go to when we're developing theories of understanding, but also developing theories and treatment approaches as well. A key thing to really understand in this area is that there are different levels of theories. So Tony Ward is someone who you'll be reading a lot about in this area of study. And what he's done is he's developed a meta-theoretical framework of theory development. Now, what this means is that there are different levels of theory. The theories that I've already mentioned, so the kind of motivation facilitation model, the integrated theories, the 4 preconditions model, these are all multifactorial models. They're level 1 theories. They're the very high profile, grand theories of sexual offending. What that means is that they're bringing in multiple different factors and putting them all together in that way of kind of knitting together different constructs in order to develop a more comprehensive view of sexual offending. The next level down are level 2 theories. These are individual single factor models. Now what this means is that the different aspects that are within the level 1 theories can be explained in a more comprehensive way at the level 2. So for example, if we are assuming that the social environment interacts with particular implicit theories that people who have committed acts of sexual violence hold, then those implicit theories are separate constructs that can be understood at level 2. So they're the single factor models that then feed into these grand multifactorial theories. At level 3, what we have are kind of individual micro level models that help us to understand the offence chain in a very direct way. We're not going to spend too much time looking at this, if any time at all, to be honest, because these are very individual for each individual perpetrator. So what this means is that we can't necessarily formulate a fuller model of how these things operate, or how level 2 theories operate at level 3, because it will be different for every person. But I'll talk about where level 3 might fit within each of the models as we're going through. Okay, so just to remind you, these are the models that we'll be looking at in this series. Before we go into those level 1 models though, and those level 1 theories, what I want to do is to spend a couple of videos just looking at some key ideas at level 2. So we'll look first at the idea of deviant or atypical sexual interests, and then we'll look at implicit theories. And then once we've done that, we'll be able to hopefully understand these level 1 theories in a more comprehensive way. So we'll first look at level 2, then look at level 1, and give you an overview of those models of sexual offending.